Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the 6th Annual General Meeting and Annual Session of Sportscom Industry Confederation, dedicated to the vibrant world of sports. Whether as players, fans, or industry leaders, sports unites us all and offers endless opportunities for growth and innovation. Today, we will dive into a series of thought-provoking plenary sessions that explore the future of sports. We'll discuss how to engage new age sports fans, the exciting game of Kho-Kho and its evolution, examine the employment and skilling needs for the evolving sports industry, reflect on India's rise as the next global sports manufacturing hub, and relevance of nutrition and drugs in sports. But before we get started, may I request all the delegates to kindly ensure that their phones are on silent mode and they need to be very interactive with our speakers. Without further ado, we will begin with our first session on new age engagement for sports fans. And to steer the discussion, it is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed moderator, Mr. Abhishek Binaykia, Partner, Leader Sports Advisory and Technology Advisory, Grand Thornton, Bharat, LLP. Abhishek is a luminary in the sports and technology advisory arena with an impressive career spanning over 2 decades in multiple geographies. His adept leadership in strategic advisory, technology, client relations, and organizational growth has been instrumental in elevating sports organization to new heights of success. May I now invite our distinguished speakers for the session. May we have on stage Mr. Ramakrishnan Subramanian, founder, Sports Mechanics. I request everybody to kindly give a round of applause, please. Dr. Mohankumar, founder, Fanplay. Mr. Chintan Shah, director, Sports Interactive. Mr. Paroksh Gupta, managing director, A&W Capital. Mr. Nishant Shah, founder, SportsFirst Technologies. And now I request Mr. Binaykia to kindly hand over and kindly take on this exciting discussion and session, please. Over to Mr. Binaykia. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining what promises to be a very exciting discussion on new age fan engagement, especially in the sports area. The way sports organizations have now started interacting with their fan base has drastically changed from what it was a few years ago. And a lot of that is in part to the advent of digital platforms, of new and emerging technologies like AR, VR, AI. And that's led the fan to change from what was a passive fan to a more active fan who wants more curated and personalized content to consume. And to continue that discussion, we have a very esteemed group of panelists today who are industry leaders in their own respective fields. Chintan, we'll start the discussion with you. So in the post-pandemic era, how have fan expectations changed in terms of what they want, what kind of content they want, the level of personalization? And how has that led to what we now call as the modern fan?
Hi everyone, thanks Abhishek. Look, pandemic was a watershed moment in many ways for just the ecosystem, digital ecosystem in many ways. But when sport was not there for say 6 to 12 months, no live event happening, the attention span of fans shifted to digital. The consumption habits became predominantly digital, and once the sports came back, that habits continued, right? It is the behavioral pattern of sports consumption changed with the fans in the post-pandemic era. So pre-pandemic, when you talk about sports, it was about match day, right? What's happening on the match day? How do we engage with the fans? Basis what's happening in the field of play. I think that shifted to, and with also technology coming in, AI coming in, the match day narrative changed to experience day, right? So it's no longer just talking to fans and telling them about what's happening on the field of day, but they are there on different touch points, and how do you create an entire experience for a fan? Now that becomes critical, that what you do on social, what you do on your own platform, which is website and app. On ground, what are the experiences you can create? And the great part is a fan is present everywhere today. Even if someone is watching a game on the ground, they are on social, engaging with you, talking about what's happening in the field of play. Fans want to voice their opinion, they are a little more empowered. So I think from a passive fan, like you said, it's a very empowered fan who chooses to where they want to engage with the brand. You no longer can say, okay, I'll do 10 things on website and I expect all my fans come to the website and engage with us. It is about being there when the fans are and talking in their language and giving them that experience.
No, very, very correctly said. And fans also want to be engaged outside of the tournament days, right? So I think that's become a very critical part of how do you keep the fan engaged in the off season. There's obviously monetization opportunities there as well. Excellent. Ramky, you're big into data and analytics. So talk a little bit about data and analytics-driven fan engagement. How is this driving that personalization and more contextual content that we spoke about that can help not only acquire, but also engage and then monetize this fan base?
The acquire, engage, monetize, influence cycle, okay, that's the framework. How do you acquire fans? How do you identify new fans and take them on a journey from a casual fan to a fanatic? How do you engage with them? Because the digital loyalty is very less. Today, at the flick of a finger, they're going to the next destination. So if you don't engage them in the first 5 milliseconds, you're going to lose them. So how do you engage with them? Increase the dwell time on the app so that the new opportunities, transactional opportunities arise out of it. So how do we also use the fan to influence and build the community fast? So it's all about, ultimately it's all about building the community. How do you build the community quickly in an accelerated manner? And most importantly, how do you monetize the community, the fan monetization opportunities? How do you exploit them with the new age technologies which are coming up, like blockchain, AI? All these are going to help immensely in changing the way fans experience the sport. Like Chintan was mentioning about the consumption patterns of the fans have changed. Everybody wants snackable content. Today, the fan goes in search of information. We want to reverse it back, saying the information should chase the fan. And that's how you're going to accelerate building the community as such. So that's a new possibility which you're trying to unlock.
Absolutely. And just taking that conversation forward, Paroksh, you're into technology. How is technology and digital transformation being used to create these high engagement use cases and that actually can be replicated at scale? And any success stories that you have in mind that you can share?
I think there's plenty happening. I think all of us are probably going to echo similar thoughts on the direction in which it's moving, more digital, more personalized, giving power in the hands of the sports consumer. We've seen some very interesting stuff happening across the world. I think there have been a few challenges, however. The most obvious success stories have been stuff like fantasy, for instance, that just added a new engagement tool for the traditional sports consumer. Right now, if you speak to a lot of sports fans, they're a bit dissuaded from the traditional commentary and linear broadcast, and they want the power to, let's say, choose the camera, watch in Bhojpuri, watch-alongs instead of a full match. So those directions, I think, are clear. The more you can engage them while they're watching on their screen instead of the TV is the direction. I think in terms of success stories, one challenge we've seen is everyone's approaching it from their vantage point. So a lot of tech players are approaching it very deeply to figure out what tech can do to create something new, which doesn't always lead to a use case that can be scaled or monetized. Likely if you look at the full value chain right now, and we are, to put things in perspective, coming off a decade where the rights holders and leagues have seen unprecedented growth in media values, to now at a point where the media broadcasters are the only ones losing money. Pretty much everyone's full of cash. And from their point of view, I think they're looking for solutions which are a bit more closely integrated to the core media delivery. A lot of examples and attempts thus far have been independent, isolated tech plays, which might in some way take attention and commercial value away from the core media, so they don't always see it in a synergistic way. I think what needs to be done is a more collaborative approach where the value can be shared across the various stakeholders. I think fans engage at times from a rights holders and leagues and teams perspective, but they don't at times really care as much about monetization. Broadcasters don't care if the fans engage or not unless it actually monetizes. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg. The broadcasters don't want to invest behind technologies. They are the ones who have the deep pockets because they don't know if it will yield the right results. The tech players are doing their bit, and I've seen so many platforms scrapping it out, trying to build interesting stuff, but they don't get the right support because it's the same chicken and egg problem. So I think there needs to be a more collaborative approach. Someone needs to believe in everything that's being said here, that there is a fundamental change happening in how a sports consumer consumes sports, and work towards finding use cases, test those out. I mean, these should be tested the way pharma tests their drugs. Is this working, not working? Is this only the ones that work should be stuck with, and then given a proper push to see whether it can yield results over a long enough period? Just trying out something new and hoping it works magic, I think, is a bit short-sighted.
No, absolutely. And if you look at broadcast, and we can talk about cricket because that's where a lot of the money comes in. You see now commentary in multiple languages. Before it was very few, Hindi, English primarily. The other thing that I've noticed is that because the amount of money being spent to get those broadcast rights is so massive, they are now forced to figure out ways to now engage the fans more because they need more revenue streams to offset that investment. I think that's also fueling a little bit of...
Absolutely. It slightly, unfortunately, adds a bit of a perverse incentive where unless it generates money in the next quarter or something, they just disregard it and discard it and don't give it the right attention, nurturing that it needs to maybe actually make a mark. So yeah, absolutely echo that.
Excellent. So continuing on our emerging technologies piece, Nishant, again, you're into high tech. So how do you think emerging technologies like augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality essentially are enhancing the fan experience both inside and outside the stadium?
100% correct. Actually, I'll take this in two ways, right? I'll tell about the opportunities and the challenges in the adoption. So I think the opportunities are immense now just because the amount of data available now was never there before. And that's why the ChatGPT and all the major LLMs and AI models are coming up now because a lot of data is available to everyone, right? So that creates an opportunity to create seamless experiences, and that's true for sports as well. So I think from in campus, I mean, we have also built multiple solutions for this. But what happens is it starts from, let's say, as we are discussing, right? You park your car and you enter into the stadium. So the emerging technologies starts there and then, right? Where you don't need someone to, let's say, validate your ticket. You enter into your stadium, you get your seat. There is a, let's say, VR assistant which guides you where you have to sit. And then you see the overall match experience, and you have your VR assistant as well in terms of helping you with the stats, helping you with the data of the previous matches. So I think that is the level of personalization which is happening, and still it's just beginning, right? I mean, the biggest advantage of all the technologies right now is personalization. And I think that is going to expand more and more due to AI, due to, let's say, the smart devices, what everyone is owning right now. And if we talk about VR, it's altogether, let's say, newer vertical, right? So what happens is, if you create a stadium of, let's say, 2,000 people, still, or let's say 20,000 people, still only it can occupy 20,000 people. But imagine a virtual stadium where anyone can have the same thrill and feel what you are having in the stadium. So that is priceless, right? I mean, maybe 1 million people can see the final match of India and Pakistan in the stadium with this technology. So I think there is a lot of opportunities in that, and with the newer devices which are coming in by Meta and other players, they are fantastic. So even right now, I think NBA has done their own virtual metaverse as well, metaverse experience for one of their few of the league teams, and it was tremendous. I mean, they also did this survey, and the beta users told that it was exactly like seeing the match from the stadium. So I think earlier we were thinking it is far away, but I think we are very near to a space where we can also enjoy the stadium-like experiences from our home. And yeah, again, I mean, we have to see as an ecosystem how India can contribute to this, global technology revolution, what is happening in sports.
Right, and I mean, one of the reasons I think that if you look at leagues in the US or Europe, they're able to provide fantastic in-stadium experiences is because the owners or the team owners own the stadium, they own the infrastructure. I think that's a big challenge here.
Correct. Correct, 100%. But we have one unfair advantage as well, right? So we have so much technology talent available in India. So even the experiences in those stadiums are built here in India, right? So I think we have to see how we can utilize the same things in our ecosystem as well.
Correct. Takes intent and a little bit of money, I suppose, yeah. Mohan, so obviously you're big into semiconductors and all that. So we see a lot of sensor-based technologies. And you combine that with AI and ML algorithms, gathering player data. In fact, I did that in my previous life at Spectacom, and then that data is used to create curated experiences, for fans. So talk to me about some use cases where you've actually seen this implemented across any sport.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry for dropping in late. Got delayed in the flight. So, yeah, so we have been trying to put these sensors, wearables especially, on players and on fans. Our first project actually was way back in 2019 with the South Africa team. They were playing the World Cup in Japan, and they wanted to connect the fans in real time and look at their emotions. And South Africa went on to win the Rugby World Cup, right? So that was our first project, and when we did that, I think people here became okay to try it out. So CSK was our first team, tried out the emotions of fans, and then how do you churn that? Because now you can personalize data. You are getting first party data. You're not getting social media duplicates, right? On the other hand, our objective to put it on players has not been very successful because of the BCCI has some rules against that. We have been trying since 2012 actually. Our first trial was in Indo-Pak match, T20 World Cup, not the World Cup, T20 first match in India, but we were never successful in getting that going, right? So across the world, I think now recently you would have seen Ronaldo playing with the Whoop, and they were able to show the data, right? Now, how is that engaging is the question, right? So a fan who's deeply involved in the game would love to see that kind of data. And I think Boat or Noise, I'm not sure, also put out for Neeraj Chopra when he did the javelin throw. What was the heart rate of fans, right? So that data becomes very critical because when you look at the advertisement dollars which are going in, they would like to connect with the fan at that most, emotional state, I would say, right? That's the whole idea behind advertising and all of that, right? Otherwise, it's like spray and pray kind of thing. So yes, I think across the world, I'm seeing a trend in terms of sensors coming on the players and also on the infra, right? If you have seen Wimbledon and Olympics, in fact, in Olympics, we saw the heart rate of the archers in real time, right? So those things are coming in, but adoption is pretty slow because there is not a pull for this kind of data, right? Yeah.
So that's interesting because we were having a conversation on the accuracy of sensor-based data versus today on, let's say, computer vision or camera-based technologies, which is where a lot of the analysis comes from. So if let's say you put a sensor on a cricket bat, you'll get a lot more accurate information in terms of your bat speed and power, but it's the player's equipment. So there is obviously a challenge there, right? And what we are seeing today is from data from primarily multiple cameras, obviously high quality cameras, but do you believe that accuracy gap is still significant for sensors to make more sense as compared to some of these camera-based technologies?
Yes, certainly. I think sensors on the equipment or on the player will add a lot of data. I mean, very, very rich and accurate data, which is not possible with computer vision-based analytics. There is certainly a case for it. We know in FIFA, they do use wearables, and despite being it a contact sport and they roll and fall. So I don't see a reason why cricket can't adopt that, right? And the amount of data, not just from players, but even the fans. If it were churned together, it makes for interesting propositions going forward.
Absolutely. So let's now talk about monetization of how do you monetize fan engagement. So Chintan, how can sports organizations balance creating that premium experience for their fans while also maintaining free content so that you can engage a much broader audience?
Yeah, I think, look, we first need to understand the sports ecosystem in India and the dynamics that are there in it, right? So, like you mentioned at the start, unlike, say, US, UK markets, we have only 3 months of in-season, maximum 4 if you take Kabaddi into play. And there's a huge off-season period that we have to deal with, where it becomes incredibly difficult to keep a fan engaged because there is no relevance. In cricket, there's still some relevance because those players are playing for India and their respective countries, and you can talk about that. But what about, say, Kabaddi? What about Kho-Kho, right? What about other sports where we don't even see those players after the in-season ends, right? So once you understand that, and there are different dynamics at play, both during the in-season and during the off-season. I think in-season it's little easier because there is relevance, like I said, and social media plays a big role during the season because, look, social media today has become conversational. It's about moment marketing. Even if you see your own feeds, you don't necessarily see posts of your pages that you follow, but what is relevant at that point in time and linked to your consumption pattern, that's what is being seen on social media. So same thing sports teams have to do, where they need to stay relevant to the topic, be in the conversations with the fans, and that's how you build fan affinity during the season, along with, of course, the other experiential products that would be there on your own platforms, on ground, etc. I think the challenge is the off-season, and I think in the challenge currently, and like Nishant mentioned, the opportunity is data, but the challenge is we don't know our fans enough. Social media doesn't give you the deep level data about what the fan motivations are eventually. But say, for example, IPL teams, you take Mumbai Indians, they would have millions of app downloads, millions of people coming to their website to consume that content. Do we know who those fans are, right? What are their motivations? What are their consumption patterns? Because if you know that, then you can create personalized, personalized communication. There is no spray and pray like Mohan mentioned, right? I'll give you 2 examples, right? Say, for example, we have a Mumbai Indians fan. One follows Rohit Sharma. It's at, the age group is 35 to 40, likes to consume deep level data content. And predominantly the behavior is to watch long form articles. The second is Hardik Pandya fan, who is a new age fan, who wants to consume a lot of experimental, products on your website and app. Now the communication that you can send to both of them is very different. And that is the beauty of data, because data will tell you what a fan wants, and you can be at the right place at the right time. That is what the play is during the off season. That's how you really build the communities for future.
No, absolutely, and privacy is a very important facet. Nishant, you worked on AI. How do you balance innovation using technologies like AI while also ensuring that data privacy concerns are addressed?
Correct. I mean, it's very big challenge for sure. And there is also other challenge with AI, which is happening right now, is hallucination. Right? So, I mean, it is getting lot of data. It is not able to filter out as well what is right, what is wrong. Right? So, I think that is a challenge right now. So there are multiple ways. I mean, we and other people are trying to fix it, is how to remove, let's say, PII, personally identifiable information, from the data feeds, right? So that it is not directly related to a user, but at least you get the persona of a user. So that is one way of doing it. And other ways, I mean, continuously fine-tuning the AI models to make sure that, it is not hallucinating. But as it is comparatively very newer as a technology, these challenges are not that fixed yet. But definitely there is a huge concern about data privacy security across the globe. And in fact, even EU legislated recently that if it's ChatGPT or any other LLM, open LLM, cannot just take data from internet and all the sources. So, but I think that is a big challenge, but we'll figure it out.
Fair enough. Ramky, coming back to Chintan's point on monetizing, especially during off-season, this is where I believe sort of technologies like blockchain can come in and play a key role. Any examples of any creative monetization strategies using some of these technologies?
Yeah, one of the untapped areas is the fan monetization. How do you create a smart fan? Most important thing is in the community, I may be operating under 5-6 social media handles, but how do you identify how many unique fan followers you have? Because the data can be misleading sometimes, because if I operate under 5-6 handles, it is not 6 fans, but only 1 fan operating under 6 handles. So how do you identify that unique fan? How do you tokenize the fan, which blockchain can help in terms of tokenizing the fan, creating a unique fan ID, and how do we create the fan persona and serve them content in a very personalized manner, and create a lot of cross-sell, upsell opportunities within that. So once the fan tokenization kicks in, then it opens up a whole lot of new possibilities.
Rightly said. Paroksh, just comparing India versus or Indian fan engagement when we talk about broadcast or teams versus what we see globally. So where do we stand? Where do Indian broadcast and team-driven fan engagement stand vis-a-vis some of the top world leagues, NFL, NBA, EPL?
Well, a lot of dichotomy over there. So I think you speak to any global organization, take the Olympics, take Real Madrid, they'll all say India is always first or second in whatever internal charts we pull up. It's exactly the other way when it comes to monetization. So I think we're coming from a very different point when we look at how to address monetization of fan engagement in India versus the rest of the world. Unfortunately, we are so used to, we've been spoiled to watch everything for free, that right now I think more basic problems need to be solved for the Indian fans, that they need to pay for something as entertaining as IPL. So I think that will be a good starting point before we can get to a higher level of sophistication of how they pay for other enhanced engagement features. If you were to look at other ways which have been successful overseas, which can potentially be replicated to India, I think there are a few examples which are worth considering. I think gaming's been a good example that traverses across sports, across markets, which has acted as a pretty sustainable, monetizable digital twin to most traditional sports, and solves for a lot of things. It gives you access to a newer demographic. It allows for year-long fan engagement. It allows you to take on the persona of playing as Virat Kohli while you're playing the game. So I think that's certainly one which I'd be keen to see being replicated in the context of India and hence cricket. I think for a lot of the others, we are at a different place in our journey as a customer or a consumer compared to the overseas market. Also, some of the points Chintan mentioned that unfortunately, we don't have competition either for the league or the broadcasters in India. Whereas in US, the US sports are competing among themselves, and that's driving innovation. In Europe, the leagues are competing among themselves with other European leagues as well as other sports within the nations, which is driving competition. And that competition leads to innovation, which creates the edge. In India, I think, rather than suddenly jumping on what can be monetized, we need to consider a more basic question. What is it that can lead to enhanced engagement, firstly, which is indisputable? I think anything that leads to enhanced engagement will lead to higher monetization, at least, if not through user commerce, at least through better brand value, better advertisement possibilities, just some form of ad and sponsor-driven monetization. I think user monetization has not been so straightforward for a sports fan. I think there are examples we can draw. Again, if I were to take gaming, it's proven a very interesting space where the user actually engages and indulges in commerce in various ways. They do tipping, they do microtransactions, they buy digital goods, they buy physical goods, they buy gaming coupons, they pay for freemium content, they pay to participate in esports tournaments. So it's a very multifaceted monetization approach when it comes to gaming in all markets, including India, for a large part. So I think there are plenty of examples that we can draw, but for a more traditional sports fan, I think we are at a very different phase in our evolution still.
So, see, cricket, at least in India, has the money, right? We can argue other sports don't have the investments coming in, the stakeholders don't make enough money. Why then have we still seen a lag in where, let's say, an IPL or the teams associated with IPL engage with their fans vis-a-vis the NFL. I mean, it's the second most valuable league now in the world, IPL.
Well, at some level for most of the stakeholders, and I don't think it's fair to club all stakeholders as sports bodies. Each has a very different objective. I think if you look at the IPL or BCCI, I mean, there's no need to change anything. It's doing as well as they'd have ever hoped for. So there is no impetus at all, according to me, for them to do anything drastically different to what's already happening. Look at the teams. I think teams do have a bit more onus, but at the end of it, a bit of it is kind of to build a bit of a brand value, gain a bit of an edge, but none of it actually impacts their P&L. They're all making a lot of money, and beyond a point, they don't care. So ultimately, the only ones who really care and need to give this a push are either the broadcasters or the fans need to kind of show up in a way that forces the stakeholders to take more drastic measures. But if everyone's going to tune in and watch, there's no impetus on anyone to do all that much. There's money, yes, but it's almost an interesting situation where because of the market share that cricket has, it's become so strategic that larger players have forgotten about, or rather rightly or wrongly, just taken a very long-term view on using cricket for more strategic measures and using it to build market share and build kind of larger platforms. That monetization's become a bit distant in terms of their problem statement. But it'll come. I think this is the right time to be building all of this. And I do think India should maybe consider building for the world. I think if we just stay too focused on building for India, then we'll be stuck with some of the handicaps of cricket in India, which is at a different place to where the world is.
Just to add to that, you're talking about numbers. The numbers are huge. When I was amazed, I was at the SportsCom meeting, and I think in one of the, I think it was Assam, one of the events, they said 35 million participants. And you have the data of 35 million participants, and then any brand will come to you at any point of time, right? So that's the kind of volume you're talking about. And if you collect the data, and if you, everybody talks about putting their thing on the social media, YouTube and all that. And, do you own the fan? Nobody owns the fan. It's Facebook and Twitter who owns the fan. They are laughing their way to the bank with your content. So how do you own the fan and look at the valuation of a Mumbai Indians or a CSK if they own the fan? So how can you create a property where the fan come, and you need to create a fan destination for them to come and enjoy and celebrate the sport which they are involved in. And then it leads to a lot of other commerce happening around that.
So, it boils down to what you're saying is an intent to want to put the fan at the center of your experiences versus the need to be able to do so, right? And the money is there primarily from broadcast rights, but it's not like the broadcasters making money. They're actually losing money, right? So it's putting in 40,000 crores. They're not going to recoup that. So somewhere I think that desire to put the fan at the center has to come from every stakeholder.
It is happening in every state. The other previous meeting, there was some gentleman from Jammu and Kashmir who again quoted the same kind of numbers. For local sports, okay, for a kabaddi or a kho-kho, these are the numbers we are talking about. So volume-wise, we have the scale.
And just another point. I think that the Indian consumers fundamentally don't pay has been, fair to say, dispelled as a myth. I think if you give them value, they pay. Again, take gaming as an example. No one would have thought something like PUBG would be doing like more than 100 crores of monthly revenue in India. So it's flabbergasting figures. Another more recent example in sports is just look at how willing the consumers have been to pay for ticket prices for IPL or World Cup, but say take IPL as a more relevant example, that have grown like at least 3x in the last 4 years, and the stadiums are still full. So give them value, they'll pay. And this is for the stadium experience that we just discussed. India is at least 30 years back in terms of stadium experiences. So Indian consumers will pay. I think give them value, give them something that they can hold on, they'll pay. No one has actually properly tried it out to make them pay.
Fair enough. Mohan, coming to you, from a tech innovation perspective, over the next 3 to 5 years, what do you think are going to be the top 2 or 3 innovations that we'll see focused on driving fan engagement?
Yeah, I think what he said about keeping the fan at the center of that universe is matters a lot, because I have a different take on the privacy topic also, which we spoke. I think fans are okay if you use that data positively, right? I mean, if you, fans want recognition at the end of the day, right? I mean, they want to be known as the famous fan of so-and-so team, and they have supported the team, right? Now, coming to the off-season monetization, we have tried few experiments with teams like CSK. You know, we said off-season is actually a longer than the on-season, and on-season is so crowded with brands that none of the brands stands out. So can we have a connected service, right? Can we give, let's say, CSK Fitness Challenge, for example, and then we gave them wearables. Fans loved it, right? But then we have not got to a point where we could monetize it properly, right? We have tried that with even Kerala Blasters football team, and they were much more passionate than the CSK fans, right? So as he said, I think fans are willing to pay for value. We are not far away from fans, you know, taking services from the team. But the flip side is we found that, you know, teams wind up after IPL, right? There's a skeletal staff which is available to actually, they'll be planning for the next IPL. So that has been a challenge. But I think in terms of proportion, if you see, teams probably earn 10% of their overall broadcast revenue share in terms of merchandise and all of that. You find duplicate jerseys on the platform and so on, right? So in terms of monetization, it has been quite a challenge, but I think we will get there. The third point, as you just asked about, you know, the future, I think, yeah, as I said earlier, it's all kind of coming together, and I think the broadcasters and teams have a lot to gain if they take up innovations. You know, the brands are anyway pumping in money, right? Now, if I want to go to a brand and say, okay, this season you spend 5 crores, next season you have to spend 10 crores. Now, what's that 5 crore jump you're offering, right? Today, we don't see that. Unless you bring in tech, like you have Super Bowl, one full day is just millions of dollars spent, right? And people look at it eagerly, you know, all the ads and everything, right? So there's a story which is built around that. I think, as Ramky said, I mean, there's huge volume of data, right? And I think we should be leading the world in putting this tech innovations forward, which we aren't, unfortunately, because people are okay with what they are getting today. And they don't want to lose by doing something different, I suppose, right? So, yeah.
So before we open it up for questions, one common question for you. One thing that you'd like to see changed within the Indian sporting ecosystem, whether it's broadcasters, sports teams, any other stakeholder, when it comes to fan engagement? Chintan, we'll start with you.
So I made this point earlier, but I think there has to be a focus of, like Ramky mentioned, there's so much data out there. We need to put in effort to know the fans better. I think we don't know who our fans are across different sports, different properties, and that leads to lack of monetization, that leads to developing products that are inherently that fan wants. So I think once we know the fan, we'll have multiple avenues of product innovation, content innovation. So that should, and I think glad to say some of, in the, at least the cricket ecosystem, some of the larger players have understood it and they are on that path. But it's a cycle. You can't know millions of fans in a day or two, right? It's a process. In a year or two, I think you will see much more monetization driven, backed by knowing your fans better.
Paroksh.
Yeah, I think fundamentally a shift in how isolated stuff is happening on trying out various things has to be a more concerted effort. So there needs to be some forum or an effort to bring the stakeholders together and do this together with a slightly more long-term approach. I don't think sporadic efforts of some innovative feature here, some AI angle there are really going to scale up. Needs to be with all stakeholders coming together, the outputs being needle moving in the long term, testing it out thoroughly, scientifically to see what works, what doesn't, and then implementing it and giving it time to yield the results.
Ramky, your thoughts?
Yep, I would love everybody to think through an integrated approach towards building the community and monetizing the community as such. because there are a lot of effort being put in a siloed manner. As far as if you're having a data-driven approach, then you need to have an integrated approach. The siloed approach will not work because everybody is collecting data and that data is not available to the, for instance, the ticketing agencies, they collect a lot of data, but that is not available to the BCCI or the IPL. Okay, so how do we have an integrated approach? And a lot of cross-sell, upsell opportunities can emerge once you have an integrated approach.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I think it is, again, it is how to create a 360-degree experience for sports. I think that is where we should focus more on as an ecosystem, right? So from in-stadium experiences to in-house experiences, right? How it can be made better and how to create more touch points to engage, let's say, your fans more and more. And I think this is not maybe that relevant, but we should also empower people to play more. So I think if we as a nation, we play more, we'll be more enthusiastic as fans. So I think that is also one factor we should also consider in.
Well said. Oh.
Yeah, I'll just add to what he said. I think Nishant said, I think at the grassroots level also, I think this thing has to build because at the top you have anyway the IPL, it'll survive, it has its own stuff to go. ISL, I believe, is not doing great, and none of the other sports are doing great. So I think there has to be a focus on perhaps non-cricket sports a lot more. We need more Olympians than cricketers, I believe. So I think there has to be a grassroots movement towards liking sports, cheering for athletes, and I think if that comes, then we are looking at the next billion, of the fans, right, to engage.
All right, we'll open it up for questions. Anyone? No questions on fan engagement? Yes, Pallavi, please.
Hello, everyone. That was quite an eye-opening session. I'm Pallavi. Okay, there's a bit of a understanding required at my end. Now, as a consumer, I always think India as a country lacks that sports fanaticism, right? Like, probably there's not enough for consumers to consume outside of cricket, or there is not that kind of passion, that kind of legacy fandom that exists in our country. While you look at Barca, Manchester, you look at NBA, people wake up at night, people travel, they spend shitloads of money to go and see the matches here and there, and starts at an early age. Do you think this is a problem that happens because of the lacking fan engagement? Because this community has never been nurtured or taken care of in a certain way? Do you think the country lacks the passion or the fandom because of this aspect?
I'm happy to give my take, but I'll let everyone chip in as well. So I think culturally, historically, India has evolved very differently to say how a European market has. It is true that sports has been a far more integral part of the community building and local fabric in European countries and to an extent US lifestyle as well. Compared to India, I think our problems over the last 60 years have been more basic. So we are at a different place. We are a developing economy that's getting there. So it's only natural that now we are increasingly seeing people going out a lot more. I do have a slightly different take on the participation level of sports in India. I think those have been consistently healthy and have only grown exponentially over the last 4 or 5 years, which has widened the gap between participation and consumption. I think on the consumption side, take any in-stadium experience, for example. We go for IPL, but there's just not enough propensity to go for much else, which is very different to the European fabric. I mean, take Paralympics. Even in Paralympics, the most obscure sports still had healthy spectator support and a good vibe, whereas in India, it'll be an empty stadium, I'm 100% sure. So I think these things will, behavioral changes which will take much longer. I don't think just mere fan engagement will fix it. It's a much longer road, and that's fine. I think we need to take smaller steps in first diversifying beyond cricket, giving them the right value, and then moving on from there.
And I had a point. So look, it's a little unfair to compare even IPL ecosystem to European ecosystem. They are 100-year-old clubs. our ecosystem is 10-year-old baby, to be honest, or 15-year-old, right, in IPL case. So, and look, I think fan engagement is there. So during that 3 months when IPL is on, Mumbai Indians, CSK, RCB would top the charts in terms of engagement video views globally, right? So during that relevance period, I think the fans are engaging. The problem is long-term loyalty for the team, because today India as a market is still very player-driven fandom, right? So today CSK fans are CSK fans, but they're there because of Dhoni. Same with RCB with Virat and MI with Rohit. So I think this is, the ecosystem will evolve. I wouldn't say fan inherently don't have that fandom, they does, but I don't think they have that loyalty that, say, the European clubs would have from their fans, and that will evolve as the ecosystem evolves.
I also think, Pallavi, India is a culture that needs heroes, right? So if you have heroes, the following for that game particularly, it will pick up. So when Neeraj won gold at the Olympics, there was a massive uptake in people wanting to learn javelin. We've unfortunately done only at a national level well in cricket, which is why and that's grown over 30, 40 years. I think the moment you see some other sport pick up to that, even half of that level, that loyalty will automatically go up.
I think also India is a sport viewing population, and how do you present them in the way they would consume it better? The experience around that is important. I think a lot of news around the OTT getting developed in the recent days, but sports genre movies are not there. Sports docu-series is about a 64 billion market, which is waiting to explode, right? And Indian, we don't have much of, some movies have come up in the recent days, but there is more opportunity to look at a sports OTT kind of a setup.
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit with my experience. In India, if you see, what I feel, the fan base is not much increasing, because if you take any IPL team, every year their sponsor's logo change. So he is always confused. Most of the time, it should be long-term association. Like if you see the European club, the sponsors are going to remain same, fan base is intact. So this is just my observation. Just I want to know how we can get such kind of data, which Ramakrishnan Saab was telling, which can be used by the other sports industry people. The data which is available with you people. Any ideas how we can get?
I think we have to look at all the sports governing bodies should look at the approach of collecting the data in a very structured manner. Probably we can make use of the DPI infrastructure which the government has set up. That can give us a whole lot of data. From there we have to find out who the fans are and what your interests are in which sport, and serve content accordingly and curate the fan, and from a casual fan to a fanatic. That's the key to success.
And on the related point, which has been mentioned a couple of times, that fans are more attached to heroes versus teams. It's true. And linked to how IPL has grown, it's very recent. But let's not take away, that is one of the key reasons IPL works. That every night, India is a winner. And if it were the European way, then it's only 8 cities. The rest of the cities would feel less attached. So the way it works is an integral part of IPL success. That long-term, yes, fan loyalty will build and will be more about the clubs and fans, I think will happen.
All right, I think we're out of time. So thank you very much, all of you. It was a very engaging discussion. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I would now request Mr. Binaykia to kindly present the mementos to our distinguished speakers, please. Can we have the memento for Mr. Ramakrishnan Subramanian, founder, Sports Mechanics? I request everybody to kindly give a big round of applause, please. That was quite an insightful session. Dr. Mohankumar, founder, Fanplay. Mr. Chintan Shah. Mr. Chintan Shah, Director, Sports Interactive. Mr. Paroksh Gupta. Managing Director, A&W Capital. Mr. Nishant Shah, Founder, SportsFirst Technologies. And now may I request Mr. Ramky if he can present our memento to the distinguished moderator, please, Mr. Binaykia. Thank you everybody. That was quite an enriching and exciting session. I would request everybody to be seated. We'll be beginning with our next session with the Kho Federation shortly, which is again going to be a really interesting session. I request for the changeover, please. Thank you.